All right. Well, okay. Thanks for joining me. What I wanted to do here is, I actually did this for myself, and I thought it would make a cool video of how to calculate cash flow and your net operating income, expenses and everything for a multi-unit property. I did this actually out of necessity. I had to put this together. This is an actual property that my wife and I own. We live in. We kind of did this as like what you would call a house hack, where you buy a property, live in it, and because it's a multi-unit, you rent out the other units for rental income. Our intent is to hold this for a long time. I mean, this 30 some years. This will be a part of our retirement plan. But this is the first one that we bought. And I did this because a couple of reasons actually is I'll go through it, the reasons why. The main one was I've been meaning to do this for a very long time, like probably a little over a year. I think I kind of did this a little bit last year just to kind of get a gauge of where we were at. And then this year I realized, tax season's coming up at the beginning of the year. I had to figure out the income actually for my health insurance. That was something that they requested when I was signing up because I told them I had rental income. Anyway, it's also just something I should be doing at the end of every year anyway. But it's the end of November. It's like November 27th today of 2020. And so I put this together, and I wanted to make the video actually because I was pleasantly surprised, and I wanted to share this information just because I think it's interesting, and I think a lot of people, especially in the area I rent in, invest in, and also work in as a real estate agent, are looking for multi-units, and the Pittsburgh area has a ton. And I just wanted to show you how this can work out to your benefit, especially in the long run. So what we did here is, again, sorry, I'm backtracking, but I also wanted to do it too, just to point out cap rate and NOI. A lot of the videos I see are long and boring, and generally they're based on an imaginary property just to kind of show the point. And I wanted to show you how it worked with realistic numbers here. So the property we have is a 4-unit. What's nice about this one too, and we are really, really lucky in the way that this worked out, is the majority of the utilities are separated for each unit. So that's a bit unusual for our area. A lot of the ones I see, especially like duplexes or triplexes, they were single family homes that were converted. And because of that, sometimes, only the electric is separated, or none at all, and everything's on the same boiler, furnace, and same water heater. We're lucky that all the electric separated. Each unit has its own boiler, its radiator heat here, and its own gas bill as well. So I'll jump into the expenses we do have in a second, but just to point out, there's 4 units. This is the rent for each one. I put 0 for this one here because that's the one we live in, and we don't pay rent for ourselves, obviously. But this is how I figured out what our monthly and yearly income is. What we did was this, again, we were lucky with this property. It's got really good bones. The gentleman who owned it prior to us owned it for like 30 some years. I think it was like since the 70s. Took real good care of it. The main downside was that it needed a lot of cosmetic updates. So it had good, water heaters, all mechanicals. It's a good brick building. But what we did is slowly over the last year and a half, we updated apartments as tenants moved out. We updated the one we moved into right before we moved into it and everything. And so that's why these 2 units dictate the rent that they get. They've been completely renovated. I shouldn't say completely, but the bathrooms are a little bit old, but we put in new flooring and some cabinetry, things like that. Really kind of updated it. And then this one here, this tenant has actually been here longer than we have. We inherited her. She's fantastic, but that's why that rent point is where it's at. That unit was never updated or anything, and that tenant has been here from before we were here. So you'll see based on that our monthly income is around $2,100. I just multiplied that to figure out our yearly income is a little over 25 grand. So that looks good on face value, but of course you have to figure out what your expenses are. So I would say the biggest one for us is our mortgage. Now remember, with the mortgage, that does include our taxes, our school tax, our county tax, and our local municipality, as well as mortgage insurance and what's the other one? Homeowners insurance is all included in that. And so you'll see it's a reoccurring price. Yeah, sorry, I worked backwards here. That's why it's December down to January, but it was just the way I put the sheet together. But you'll see it actually increased. And again, this is another reason I put this sheet together, because we refinanced last year, which worked out really good for us. We got a better rate and a lower mortgage payment because of that. But I think they made an error where our taxes weren't appropriately paid for this year. So our mortgage is going up slightly next year because of that error they made. Not by a lot. I mean, under $40 a month, but it's just something I wanted to consider. So I'll touch a little bit on that in just a couple minutes. But the other thing that the tenants don't pay for is sewer. So we do have to pay for the sewer and the water. That's not separated in the building. So I went through and literally these are the exact numbers that I pulled out from what we paid throughout the year, with the exception of December. It's not December yet. So they did give me a bill for this. I guess I don't know how accurate that's going to be, but I had to estimate for water, and I also had to estimate for electric. That's why that's in red there. I didn't mention that the electric is separated, but with this building, we have a couple of common areas. There's laundry in the basement, and so there's some stairway lighting. There's also a common area when you walk into the building that, it's not it's not the tenant's area, so we have to cover that. But you'll see it's not much. We pay between $14 and $17 a month for that electric bill. And then the other is garbage. So in our municipality, we do have a garbage bill that we pay. So what I did was I just figured out the totals for each of these, added them all together to get our yearly expense. So our yearly expense is around $19,746.10. I just divided that by 12 to figure out sort of what our average monthly expense is, because obviously, electric varies a little bit, or I know the water and the sewer does vary, especially in certain times of the month or of the year, pardon me, where summer water bills tend to be higher, for example. And then in turn, sewer bills are a bit higher. And so that's what our yearly expenses are. Now, to figure out our net operating income, all I did was I took our total yearly income and subtracted the expenses, and I was actually pleasantly surprised because it came to just under $5,500 a year. So, I mean, not like we're rolling in money off of this investment property or anything, but the point I wanted to make is that it worked out well for us because we've been living here rent free, right? We're paying a mortgage, but not really. The money's going, coming from the income to pay the mortgage, and so we get to basically live free while we're also earning an income. And I thought it was something, I was just estimating, and I thought it was something like $200 a month, which I was happy with, frankly. But once I did the actual numbers, I realized we're making just over $450 a month in cash flow. So I thought that was awesome. And I thought it just worked out very well because, again, we plan to hold it, and I'm going to jump through some numbers here that I put for the future. But while I'm on this, I just wanted to touch on cap rate. Cap rate is basically just your net income, net operating expense, your NOI, divided by the price point. And that's roughly what we got this for. I'm actually using the refinancing number. I think we originally bought it for like 152, and then we refinanced. It was 153 and change. So I just did roundabout number of 153. The cap rate then it's low. It's under 4. It's 3.5%, which is not great. But my point is that, again, we've been living there, and what I did was the only other expenses that we have when it comes to the property, because we manage it ourselves, right? We don't have a management company. So there's little things like I mow the lawn, I do take care of yard, I shovel if there's snow, that type of stuff. But we have a gas bill and an electric bill in our home, in our unit, that we do pay. But when I did the numbers, I realized that on average, it's just about $126 a month. And so really that's, subtracting our cash flow, we're still making a little over $300 a month in cash flow, even with living here for free. So I thought that was pretty sweet, and I just wanted to point that out because I was excited about it, and I just wanted to show, how I calculated this and just share my excitement with everybody. And then the big one I looked at is I kind of just used these numbers to make an estimate for future years. So I kind of did, what based on my 2020 numbers, what the fees would be, plus that new mortgage payment I was discussing, and how that would work out. And so, because of the mortgage payment, it only went up, about $400 a year. Um, and then my cash flow, of course, would remain the same if things remain the same. But what I wanted to show you here is that our plan actually was to move out and buy another property and kind of do the same thing. But with COVID this year, everything, plans sort of changed and it just didn't really make sense for us. So that will probably be either next year or the year after that we want to do that. The sooner the better, but just as we figure things out. But I wanted to show you this because ideally we think we would at least get this. I feel like our apartment's a little nicer. We have a larger kitchen and things, but it would it's 750. And so just with us moving out and then getting the same amount of rent, you'll see how our net operating income will come up quite a bit. So this will be basically running itself, um, money wise at least. I'll still have to do some maintenance and things like that on it, and but it's going to work out pretty well. I mean, I'd make a monthly cash flow of over $1,000 for the house or for the multi-unit, once we live in another property. And so the way I'm looking at it is that's actually going to cover another mortgage right there. When I do the cap rate with that, it goes to 9. And ideally, what'll happen is this will probably get either increased down the road, or my thought is if that tenant does move out, it'll get updated, and then we should get the same rent, and then that gives us a 10% cap rate. So I'm feeling much better on the investment at this point. We very, very lucky. We couldn't have been better that we're basically not paying to live here. But as an investment on top of it, it's definitely going to generate quite a bit of income in the long run for us, with very minor maintenance because we made those small adjustments and renovations. One thing I could go into is like vacancy rates. Frankly, this has not been vacant at all, with the exception of when we took a month to make the updates. So it was mostly out of us not advertising it and just not being able to, because carpets are ripped up, floors are ripped up, painting and kitchen was a disaster. We're kind of updating cabinetry and stuff like that. So I hope this makes sense. I know I could be a lot more thorough again with maintenance fees, and I should have capital expenditures and whatnot in here. And I'm doing that sort of on my own. I don't have it on paper, but just wanted to get this out here and show you that. If you like it, maybe just hit the like button or subscribe to my channel. Love to have you there. And if maybe I'm missing something, or if you have questions, put it in the comments. I'll definitely respond to that. But I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a great rest of 2020. I'm hoping that 2021 is much better than this year. But I'll catch you on the next one. All right. Thanks.